Hello, everyone. Today is Monday, June 8th. I just about said Tuesday. Monday, June 8th, and the time is 6 p.m. And we are here tonight for a budget workshop. A quorum is present. We do have people both virtually and here in person. So we're going to call the meeting to order. And did you want to say anything to start with? Guess not. Do we have anybody? Oh, Cliff, you can move over if you'd like. Do we have anybody for citizens appearance? There is no one who signed up for citizens appearance. So we will be moving directly on to the service organization presentations. So the says it's not due until 6:15. Is the Coppell Chamber ready now?
Yes. Yeah, we're ready. Can you hear me now?
Well, welcome. I guess today we have Ellie from the chamber. We have Kevin. Hey.
I'm sorry, you cut out. I couldn't hear you.
There's Kevin. If you guys are ready to start, you are welcome to start.
All righty. Well, thank you. I'm Ellie Braxton Levine. I'm the president and CEO of the Coppell Chamber of Commerce. And thank you, Mayor Hunt and City Council, for allowing us to come and present to you tonight. I wanted to, we've made a request for continued funding with some additions to that funding, and I would like to take a few minutes just to kind of go through who we are, what we've accomplished, and what we're going to be doing with that additional funding that we've requested from the city. Over the past, it was 2 years ago that I made this presentation to y'all and shared with you that we had a whole different vision and we're going to take the chamber in a completely different direction. And I'm not going to go through this handout verbatim, but we did change the direction of the Coppell Chamber. We're not the city a lot of people thought that we were, but we're not. We work very closely with our city. We love our city, but we are not the city. And we work very closely with education, but for our own self-serving reasons, because the product that those schools produce are the product that we're going to be hiring and the people that are going to be running this community one day. And so we care very much about the city, but we're not the city. We are owned by the business community. We are governed by the businesses that are there. And our sole focus is to serve the interests of the business community. We're one of those very fortunate communities that does have a close relationship with our city and our schools. We changed that focus back a few years ago. We created a lot of different programs, and as you guys have seen in the request that I sent and in the handout that I sent, we developed programs that focus primarily on serving the business community. And the Economic Development Council, we just started a hospitality council to bring attention to our restaurants and our hotels, but not for visitors, for the numerous conventions that were going on there and business training that was happening in Coppell, and we were focused on bringing those people into our restaurants and hotels. And we just designed a lot of programs that I know you guys have probably read through. And the reason that I'm going through that part of it very quickly was I wanted to focus on what, of course, has happened this past year and who we have become as a result of that. and what our plans are to do with the revenue that we've requested from the city. As you know, 2020 has been a whole new world for all of us. The COVID-19 virus pandemic has turned all of us, changed all of our companies, and we too had to pivot our organization into an organization that better served our members. And we did a very good job of that. What we learned from that was not only were we already providing a lot of services that were much more beneficial to the business community, and I do want to emphasize that when we are providing services that are beneficial to the business community, that benefits the entire community. The residents benefit from what we do every day. By supporting the businesses, the revenue that they generate, of course, generates tax dollars, and that money turns back over into the community and helps to provide a stronger quality of life there in Coppell. Better roads, better parks, better services, because our businesses are more successful. We did, again, create that relationship with our bigger businesses, too, so that they feel more a part of the community. So with what has happened with us over the past few months, again, we pivoted our organization, and like I said, we're not your father's chamber anymore. We created a whole new set of programs, and the funding that we've requested from the city of Coppell will help fund those programs that we're going to be able to continue to provide, that we plan to continue to provide. The number one thing we did when everything happened, when the stay-at-home regulations were put in place, was we formed a chamber recovery task force, and we have met every Monday since then to review where we are, what's going on, and what our members need. And the number one priority that we all agreed upon at that moment was, yes, we are a membership-driven organization. We are owned by our members, but every business in Coppell became a priority for us. It didn't matter whether they were a member of our organization or not. We were there to help them. We were there to serve them. We were there to provide information to them. And our board voted wholeheartedly to support that. As a result of that, we now have what we call our Shop Online in Coppell campaign. We have the website and our weekly email that goes out to our members, that goes out through all of our social media, and it promotes our businesses in Coppell, that we have retail, we have entertainment, we have services here in Coppell, and that goes out to about 3,500 individuals every week, promoting shopping in Coppell. It was originally designed by our Hospitality Council, which is a new arm that we have as well. The council was originally put together back last year, again, to bring people, these conventions into Coppell to use our services. And it was designed for meeting planners, but we redid it so that it's designed for anyone that's shopping. There's also that arm of it for meeting planners. And as soon as we're able to open our community back up fully, that group will go back into action, again, promoting our hotels and our restaurants, to our meeting planners, our HR directors, and people like that. We also will be partnering with the Arts Center. I know their opening was delayed, but we talk with them regularly, and we will be promoting everything that they're doing, because, again, that's entertainment in Coppell, and that's all part of our focus. The Economic Development Council is going to continue, and that's made up of all of our large companies there in the community. And we have been doing electronic surveys. It was weekly. We're now to bi-weekly. But that information we've been able to provide to the city. I know the city did some surveying as well. But we've been doing it on a regular basis. And we will continue to provide that information to the city that gives you the pulse of the business community. So you know what our business owners are saying, what their needs are, and how we can better serve them. we are doing, it used to be we didn't do promotions, individual promotions for the businesses there. We are doing that now. We now, if they've got a special going on, they've got some sort of advertising, we are promoting that as well. And we are in the process of right now, through our Recovery Council or task force, putting together more community-minded events to educate the community more on what the businesses have available for them. We don't feel that we've been strong enough in that area, so there is a strong focus now on educating the community on what the chamber is, what businesses and services are available local. We loved the logo that Mindy sent to us back a few months ago that said one community, one Coppell. And we've been using that in all of our promotions. To me, it spoke to the heart of us that we are one community. We are Coppell. And so we're doing a lot of promoting in those areas. We've also been keeping track of what kind of funding the businesses need and providing information to them on how to find funding, channeling them to where surveys have said that not all of them have received the funding that we need, and we knew there was more out there available, so we made sure that we got information to them. These are things that we plan to continue doing. These are things that we saw when we made that pivot that were the most important thing that our businesses need, and even when we come out of this pandemic, they still need those services. So we plan to continue those services. We've been doing a lot of online forums that are very, very inexpensive or free. We just started our government affairs series that is free that will be providing, mortgage information and banking information, real estate information, legal information to the business community at no charge. And we want the entire community to participate in that. Just a couple other things, we've been able to offer our members payment plans. A lot of them are financially strapped. These are things, again, that we plan to continue on into 2021. And making sure they have all the federal, state, and local regulations information and all of that. We are very proud of what we've been able to accomplish over the past 2 years, but even more so the past 3 or 4 months. And again, see ourselves in a whole different role in our community. Again, supporting and providing information to our members and just connecting the business with the community so that everybody knows who everybody is. That's basically what we're doing. Your funds that you give us make all of this possible. And we are very, very grateful, again, for what you have provided to us and ask that you continue to provide and give us the increase that we had requested in our formal request that we sent you. I want to turn this over to Kevin, our chairman of the board, really quick. I know he had a couple of things he wanted to say. Thank you again, Mayor Hunt. Thank you, City Council. And we look forward to hearing from you. Kevin?
Ellie, thank you so much for that. I think that's a great summary of what we're doing. Thank you again to Mayor Hunt, the City Council, and City Manager Land. We appreciate your continued support of the Chamber of Commerce. I just want you guys to know that the biggest goals that we have and we will continue to have is to support the business community and support our members. And I think that is what we're always striving to do. I apologize, my dog is barking in the background. It's the joys of being at home. Ellie outlined, I think, some of the initiatives that we have started. We've pivoted a couple of initiatives to try to better serve our members. The main goal is we're looking every day, what is essential number one, and then what can we improve with what we're doing with the chamber? And I think that's the key. Some of you guys may or may not know, but obviously, everybody has kind of taken a hit. Our chamber obviously took a hit with the events of the past couple months. Ellie will not say this. I will say this on her behalf. She has taken on a huge load. We did have to temporarily lay off some of our staff, and she has shouldered that load tremendously. We've been there to support her, but most of us have businesses that we're running ourselves. And so she's doing the heavy lifting with us advising and helping her. And I applaud Ellie's efforts. But the main reason I want to say that is now more than ever, the chamber is doing more work with less. And we are going to continue to do that. And honestly, with the increased ask that we have, it's going to allow us to better serve that the business community. Another thing I do want to point out is that we are a strategic partner with the city, and we appreciate that so much. We're working closely with Parks and Recs right now, helping get out the Independence Day event that's going on. We're actively promoting that to our business community, as well as working with Mindy and the community development section of Coppell. And we are actively working with them in the sense that they are needing our help to help get their initiatives out and stuff like that. And we love supporting these initiatives because the city of Coppell is such a big partner for what we do. The last thing I want to talk about is our incoming chair, JJ Leipout. He's here on the call with us. My goal is to help set JJ up for success next year. And when Jeff Farnell handed it off to me, he said, she's running great, Kevin. You're in charge now. And then the world fell apart. So there you go. But, my goal is to make sure that JJ has a smoother year than I did. And with your continued support and the possibility of the increase that we're asking for, I know that will help JJ in his campaign as the 2021 chairman. So council, mayor, thank you so much for entertaining that time. I appreciate it. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you. JJ, do you have anything you would like to add? I think you're on mute.
So JJ sometimes has problems with his audio on his computer, so sometimes he has to dial in on his cell phone. So I don't know if that's the problem that's happening here.
I think I'm unmuted now. Sorry. Yeah, I do. My office is pretty close to our 9-month-old's room, and I don't want to interrupt any nap times when they come around. So I'm always on my headset. But I want to echo Kevin's comments as well as thank you to the city for your continued support of the chamber. And as well, Ellie did a tremendous job of helping navigate the ship during this by herself, or without staff during this time. And Kevin nailed it on the head that we are totally changing. We've totally changed how we want to approach the chamber, pivoted some of our initiatives to really illustrate how we can bring value to the city. I think what we saw during the start of this pandemic was businesses, like a lot of us, were lost. So they're looking for guidance, and having an advocate like the Coppell Chamber to help businesses stay afloat and find resources and connect with each other and still find a way to even network for some of the small businesses was a tremendous help. And I know it was for even my business too, because I focus a lot on trying to be in front of people, and the chamber provided that opportunity. So I think now more than ever, the chamber has proved its value into the small business community and the large business community to help connect with the small business community inside of Coppell. So that's really all I wanted to add. I think Kevin and Ellie did a great job of summarizing the initiatives of the chamber. So I will turn this time back over and thank you again to the city.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions from the presentation or from the documents? Mr. Roden.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Ellie, and Kevin and JJ for what y'all are doing. I think one of the positive outcomes from this pandemic has just been seeing our community, the city, the school, the chamber, our citizens all come together and work together. That being said, and I think you guys are doing a lot of really positive things, but that being said, we obviously have some real challenges as a city trying to pull our budget together with reductions in revenue and also having positions not filled, et cetera. So I guess my question for you is we work through the summer and determine where we are going to have funds available. If we came back and said either that we need your budget from the city flat or even see a modest reduction, help us understand what you would do within your organization to accommodate that.
Well, the number one thing is we would go back to our members and say, okay, this is where we are. You know, we are owned by the business community, and that would be my first step, would be to say, okay, members, this is where we are financially, and this is where we need to be. We made a tremendous number of cuts in our organization this year as well. You know, with overhead and staff and a lot of different areas that we just cut items so that we could, you know, navigate through this as well. But that would be our first step, would be to go back to our members and say, okay, this is what's happened and this is where we need help. With everyone going through what they're going through, we don't know how, you know, what kind of response it would be, we would get. But I do know that we have had nothing but support from our members. They are hurting financially. We know that. And our renewals have been half of what they normally have been. But what I can say is with what we are doing, it will increase revenue for the city. And if we're not able to do that, then the city, you know, that will have an impact as well. But right now, you know, with getting, even during the pandemic, the work that we did to get people into the restaurants, you know, to get people back into the hotels and things like that, will have a positive impact on the city.
Councilmember Roden, if I could just tag on to what Ellie just said, you know, I think one of the value pieces that we bring is the strategic partnership with some of the sectors in the city with, you know, Parks and Rec and community development. I think the value in there is that we can do some things that they can't. And so I think that when you consider the value that we can bring to the various departments in the city, there is a lot of value there that we bring. We have the ability to turn on a dime and move a little bit faster sometimes. And we do have the ability to work really well. I will say that Ellie has received praise from those various departments about her marketing skills and the messages that we're getting out. And that's nothing but a benefit to the city when we're promoting community and city events. So I would ask that council please consider that.
I appreciate that input. Please don't take my comment as predictive of anything, but we've just got a lot on our plate that helps to understand exactly where you would be.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Mays, did you have a question?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Ellie, of the employees that you furloughed, do you have a plan in place to reintroduce those to employment?
We had January the 31st, we had 3 full-time staff, 1 part-time, and 2 contractors. A contractor for our accounting and a contractor for our marketing. Everyone was furloughed with the exception to me and our marketing department, our marketing contractor. We also moved all of our accounting back in-house and went back to our old way. We've streamlined our accounting so it's a lot easier than it used to be. And we have a CPA that's balancing our books. So anyway, our cost for a CPA went down substantially as well. We have been able to bring back our membership person part-time. She's there 10 hours a week. And hopefully we can boost her hours within the next month or so. We really, honestly, Councilman Mays, we don't know 100% until we see what's going on with our memberships. Right now, our renewals have been about half of what they had been. The other individual, which was our events director, we had hoped and put in our plan to bring her back in July or August. But again, we have nothing firm with that because, again, until we know whether businesses are opening, whether we need that role, again, because the businesses don't open. So our written plan right now is to bring her back July or August, but we're not firm on that one just yet.
So thank you. That's, I think as Councilmember Roden said, we're all in a great state of uncertainty and everybody's feeling equal pain all the way around. So appreciate your words on that. second question, the group, I read about it in your write-up, was the Economic Foundation. How's that been going? Have you been meeting remotely or virtually, or how's that going through the pandemic?
They met quarterly already, and they are scheduled to meet again in July. They were supposed to meet in April, but that was right when everything was shutting down and all the employees were being furloughed. So we did not do the meeting in April, but they are scheduled to meet again in July. We still communicate with them, but that's made up of, like I said, the bigger companies. What we did do when this thing first happened is we were able, because we had that relationship with them and we still had staff at the time, we were able to communicate with them, and I still do, back and forth. We just haven't had a meeting on what jobs they had available, because Amazon still has jobs, Container Store still has jobs, Kroger still has jobs. And so we have maintained that conversation with them and trying to funnel the people that were laid off. Mr. Cooper still has jobs, several of them. That council is what made that possible for us. We were able to just pick up the phone and call them.
Thank you for the information. Appreciate it.
I have a question. Your increase this year of $10,000, is that really due to what's been happening in 2020, or do you think this is more of a long-term or permanent increase that you're looking for from the city?
Thank you for asking that question, because this was something that we had planned on doing before all of this happened. And the reasoning behind the increase was because of the Hospitality Council that we have put together, which we had scheduled tours that were supposed to start happening in April. And of course, those got changed as well. But we were designing marketing materials. We have the brochures that we already had designed for visitors that come to Coppell. But when I say visitors, I'm talking about employees that are coming for business training. And they're in these big corporate offices, and they wanted to know where do I eat? Where do I sleep? We had already put together brochures. We were in the process of designing the website so that they could just click a button and go to that instead of the brochure. The brochures went in their HR packets when they were visiting, things like that. So all of that was already in the process. We had quarterly tours set up that they were supposed to be going around to the different restaurants we had and hotels, visiting all that. All of that was set to go. We will resume that as soon as we're able to do so. And so again, looking into 2021, that will help cover a lot of the expenses for that, with maintaining the meeting planners website, but we've also incorporated the Shop Local website as well. And then also working arm in arm, hand in hand with the Arts Council. That was the other part of it. We see that Old Town is going to change a tremendous amount once that Art Center is open. There's a lot of events that are going to be going on down there. And so we need to be able to promote what you guys are doing, and or what the Art Center is doing, excuse me. And so that additional $10,000 was planned prior to all of this to help support our efforts. We had even looked at bringing in, we had a part-time girl, either making her full-time with that extra $10,000 to, and then that would be her focus, would be the Hospitality Council and the Art Center, period, and Old Town. And then during the pandemic, we had to lay her off. And our goal is we either bring back a part-time person to do that if we can, and if not, we contract out to someone that will be in charge of that is so important. I've said this to the mayor before. No one gets in their car and says, let's go to Coppell. At least they haven't, but they come to Coppell all the time. Again, for conventions and meetings. We're right across from the airport. that is what we see as our market. And we need someone focused on that. You know, we're not looking, I always tell the real estate people to cover their ears. We're not looking for people to move into Coppell. We're looking for people that are already here, that are here for a week or so. We want you to come spend your money and go home. And so that was the design of the Hospitality Council. And that's what we plan to do in 2021. I hope that answers your question.
I believe it did.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah. Seeing none, I want to thank you guys very much for your presentation and your time. And I'm sure that we will get back to you soon. I don't know if you know that our budget, this is like at the beginning of our budget sessions. So as we move through the summer, we will be more and more able to decide if we can, where we can put our funds. So thank you again. We appreciate it. And I'm hopeful that I will see you guys in person soon.
We are too. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Mayor Hunt. Thank you, Council. And we'll hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just put this down here. Okay. Next up, we have the Coppell Arts Council. And Jana, are you here representing the Arts Council?
Yes, ma'am. Jana Tidwell, Vice President of the Coppell Arts Council. Can I go to the next slide? We're here before you today to give you information on the grant requests that we put in. Before that, I'd like to give you a little background information on who we are. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We were founded by Theater Coppell, the Coppell Community Chorale, and Coppell Creatives. And our mission is to foster the arts within our community. We're organized to exclusively promote, develop, and sustain the arts for the city of Coppell. And this includes organizing, fostering, and promoting civic, cultural, educational, and visual experiences and events for our citizens. Since we were founded, we have also brought on the orchestra, the Coppell Community Orchestra, and the ballet ensemble of Coppell under our umbrellas. So we're working as 5 organizations to create one cohesive, dynamic movement to expose our city to art in multiple ways around the community. Next slide. This past year, I'm going to really focus on, this presentation is going to focus on the public art component because that's what our request is based on. This past year, some of our achievements include that we had the 2019 Old Town Public Art installation. We installed 11 sculptures. I believe that you funded 9 of them, and the Arts Council, through our fundraising efforts, was able to fund the other 3. We hosted the Art Stroll where we had 250 attendees, and that should have been the 2019 Art Stroll. We had over 250 attendees, and we are in the process of finalizing the purchase of Red Pony so we can give that sculpture that sits on the lawn of Old Town to the city. Once we're done, we're $500 short. So our hope is once we have the art stroll, that our fundraising efforts would be able to complete the purchase of that sculpture. We have developed programming for monthly fine art exhibits for the new Coppell Arts Center. We had a whole lineup of things to start in May, and we got put on pause just a little bit. We're about to announce our first exhibit, the artists that were selected for that. That exhibit is called Locally Sourced. It features local artists. We will also have a lineup of several other exhibits. We'll have a regional sculpture exhibit that will come in, a regional painting fine art exhibit. We're bringing in, or working with the city actually, to bring in a quilt exhibit. So every month we have programmed something new that will happen in the Arts Center for people to come and enjoy in the gallery space. We also have begun a weekly open studio meetup. We have an artist in town that opens up her studio and artists get together and they create together. We've been doing it virtually here lately, but when the Art Center opens up, there's a classroom space and we would move our weekly meetups to that classroom space. This year in Andy Brown, we are installing 7 new sculptures. We've actually retained 3 existing sculptures. 2 of them we're leasing. One of them, the artist made us a really nice offer on that we're trying to purchase that one and leave it as a permanent installation in Andy Brown. And we had to reschedule our art sip and stroll to September 12th. It was supposed to be in May. We're hoping that we have a good attendance from that. I can tell you, we have some concerns that our sponsors that we normally have, one of our major sponsors, they were one of the first businesses to really be impacted from the COVID shutdowns. They predominantly are working outside of the state of Texas and many states. So they actually felt the impacts before many of our local businesses felt the impact. So we have a little bit of concern about our fundraising efforts being able to be as successful as they have been, but we're going to hit that strong. We're in the process of finalizing a public art app on AutoCast where the artists for the art in Andy Brown will be recorded, and there will be an app that people can go to and they can listen to the artists, find out more about the artwork. One of the really cool things about that app is it is a national-based app, so people who travel who are interested in public art would be able to find Coppell's public art collection through that app, and hopefully come visit Coppell. And then we also installed a permanent public art sculpture at the Biodiversity Center. So we worked with the Friends of Coppell Nature Park to do a call for art, and we funded half of the sculpture. It's the glass eagle wing sculpture that you see in this photo. So those are some things that we've done to help build Coppell's public art collection. And then we were also very thankful that we had 2 residents reach out to us wanting to contribute funds to secure the purchase of King Crow sculpture by the community garden. So that's now a permanent staple in the town. Okay, next slide. Okay, this shows you the new sculptures that we're installing this year that will go in at Andy Brown Park. A few of them have already been installed. We've had a few delays because some of the artists are coming from other states and they've had to meet their state requirements on travel restrictions, and then we've had some of our own, so that slowed down the process. But they will be installed by the Art Sip and Stroll in September. There's a nice mix of figurative pieces and abstract pieces in this collection. Next slide. And then the returning sculptures, the red and yellow sculptures called Influx and Cobra seem to be such iconic pieces that just fit the view of the park that we actually invited the artists to leave those for another 2 years. So we've leased those. And then the sculpture called Six Directions, the one that sits right in front of the Far Pavilion, that artist was actually so taken back by the beauty of the park and Coppell that they offered to sell us the sculpture for a very good deal. In fact, our lease payment this year will cover half of the cost of that sculpture. And then next year, we'll finalize the purchase of that. So we'll be able to gift that sculpture to the city. Next slide. Okay. And then this just shows you a few pictures from our Art Sip and Stroll of 2019. This is one of the big things that we do as a major fundraiser for us. So it's really important for us to take the dollars that you give us for public art in the community and to leverage those dollars to not only expose people to art, but to use it as a fundraising opportunity so we can begin to take our funds and do more things with them. So that's where some of the funds that you've seen where we purchased the sculpture for the Biodiversity Center came from, was directly related to our fundraising efforts that we do at the Art Sip and Stroll. The other fun thing about it is it's the night that the Arts Council mixes performing arts and visual arts together to show people how rich of a community we have and how many talented artists that we have in our community. And it's a fun event for us to put together every year, and we're looking forward to the one in September. Okay. Next slide. Okay. And then this is a breakdown of our grant request. When we first asked the City Council for funds, we asked for funds for 10 sculptures. Over time, we've made a commitment that we personally would start to contribute to some of those lease payments. We're actually installing 11 sculptures, so we upped our installation. We've been paying for those. And it was originally our goal to reduce the number of lease payments that we asked for this year. We're being very conservative because we haven't had our fundraiser for the Art Sip and Stroll yet. And we do know that some of our sponsors have been economically impacted. So we're holding that number at 9 this year, hoping that next year we can continue with that commitment that we made, that we would not only continue to build Coppell's permanent public art collection, but we would also start to reduce the money that we request for the sculpture lease payments. The other costs that we have associated with this is the call for art. There's a computer service or a art service that we use that gets the word out to other artists. It helps us facilitate all the entries and jury it. There's a payment that we have to make to use that service. We asked for money for plaques. We've had a little bit of issue with our plaques being stolen. So we've had to install those several times. We actually have a sign company this year working for us to come up with some designs of some plaques that would be bolted down onto the concrete instead of freestanding like you've seen before. So hopefully we're going to eliminate that problem that we've had. We'll have to go back and also do the plaques at Old Town when we do the ones for Andy Brown to replace those. So that's an initiative that we're working on. Art Sip and Stroll, we have some funds related to hiring a band, some of the materials, rental materials that we need, marketing and things like that. And then we have miscellaneous expenses associated with some years we have to put in new concrete plaques. Some years, some of the artwork requires a little bit of maintenance and stuff like that. So we've plugged in funds for that. And then we also let the community vote on their favorite sculpture, and we award that artist with a $500 stipend for the People's Choice Award. Our request this year is equal to the request that we had last year. We haven't increased it. We will fund 2 of the lease payments, and the concrete work or additional expenditures are related to the sculpture installations is what things that we would use as those miscellaneous expenses. Okay, next slide. And with that, that wraps up my presentation about our grant request, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have of the Arts Council.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation. Council, are there any questions? Councilmember Mays.
Thank you, Mayor. Jana, do you have any plans, does the Art Council have any plans to roll the funding of the ballet ensemble and the community orchestra under the Arts Council funding request?
At this point, we do not. It's been a discussion that we've had. We actually discussed it this year. And the amount of that grant request, currently we operate underneath the $50,000 budget. So our taxes are an easier thing for us to file because of that. And if we did increase that grant request to include the ballet and the orchestra, that would just mean that we would need to be better suited to do a more detailed tax report to the IRS. But that is something that we would like your feedback on, because we know that it might help streamline the process for you, since we're all working under the umbrella of the Arts Council as a group, although we have our individual efforts that we work under also. So we're definitely, any feedback that you give us, we'll definitely respond to that.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll discuss that later when we get into the budget discussion, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Roden.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate all the fine work you guys are doing. It's awesome to see the changes happening in the park and everything that you guys are doing. I'll ask a similar question that I asked the previous applicant. Obviously, we've got some challenging decisions to make as a council over the summer. If we were to cut your funding to some degree, where would you typically, or where do you think you would see you having to make a cut to make things work?
Sure. I think one of the first things that we would look at is being able to streamline our fundraising events for the Art Sip and Stroll. So that $3,000 that we plug in to host that event, we would look for savings there. And then the $3,000 miscellaneous opportunities that we have plugged in there. It's every year things come up, but we would just have to maybe let some of those slide without that funding. So there's some areas that we could make small cuts, but we are operating on a pretty lean budget as it is. But definitely whatever funds you have available for us to work with, we'll do our best to get all the sculptures in the parks. That would be our first priorities to make that happen.
Right. Again, not predicting what we'll do, but just trying to understand kind of where you guys would be. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Yingling.
Thank you. Jana, could you tell us of the funding that the city gives you? What percentage of that is from your budget?
I'm going to talk off the top of my head because I haven't done that calculation, so it wouldn't be exact. But it would be about in the ballpark of 75% of our budget.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Comments? Well, I want to thank you for joining us and for your great presentation. I know that there are a lot of positive comments from the when people go through the parks and they see the public art. If not for your group, that would have never happened. So we appreciate that more than you know. So from here on, we will continue our budget conversation as we do normally, and we will let you know the results. But thank you very much for all that you do for us.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
The next group is the Coppell Community Orchestra. So we'll bring them up. Miss Linda, are you the person that's presenting on the orchestra?
I would also like to thank the mayor, the pro tem mayor, and the council for entertaining us and helping us as we've gone along. We've grown from 15 members to 44 members. So it's been an impressive leap, and the community has been very supportive. Our last two concerts were standing room only at the library. Right off the bat, I sent some information to Ms. Lay. We found out through the Arts Council, our Vice President, Vanessa, Ms. Yotes was there, and that the rehearsal hall is always going to provide a set of music stands and a podium for the conductor. So we wiped that off the grant, and that took several $100s off, well, several $1,000s off. It made it go down to $14,800 is what we were requesting from the city. We do not charge for any of our concerts. We've been a nonprofit in business since the fall of 2017. That's when we started our first rehearsals. Unfortunately, like everybody else, we had canceled part of our season because of the pandemic. But we're still meeting by Zoom, and we tried to hold a virtual rehearsal on Zoom, which is not that much fun, but we attempted it. So now we're doing smaller ensembles and smaller groups, just to keep everybody going, because Coppell does not have a string program for the kids. So we see ourselves as an outreach for those kids and the grown-ups and the community that want to know about it. We had one of our concerts last year had ballet dancers. Another one had Bollywood dancers. We had a combined concert with the chorale at the holidays, which was fabulous, and we're planning on doing that again. Next year's season, we want to present a ball as our fundraiser, with real live dancing, to a real live orchestra, hire a dance instructor to give everybody a little heads up on how you do a waltz and a box step and the other forms of entertainment. Our purpose is for charitable and educational opportunities in the city. We support the community by providing these free concerts, and we perform at various events. We performed at the Sip and Stroll. We took instruments and let everybody mess with them, so that may or may not happen next year. We'll have to see what the TMEA requirements are. We're going to go by the Texas Music Educator Association requirements for rehearsals and concerts. So as soon as they figure that out, it's still not all firm, then we are going to use that information to structure our rehearsals and concerts to keep everybody safe. Because I really think people are going to want to get out and come hear the orchestra. The new performance hall is beautiful. I was over there playing when it was still dirt and brick and mortar on its way, and it's going to be a great facility. We're so happy about that. Our conductor and music director, Ms. Hamilton, she has already got next season's program figured out, all the songs, some of the music ordered, but not all of it. We would have run out of money this year if the pandemic hadn't hit, because we were going to have to reuse music, and we didn't ask for a grant last year because we were growing at a fast and furious rate. We had a path to independence. Our corporate sponsors were rocking, but we're not quite sure how that's going to work out because everybody's having a little bit of belt tightening, cinch it up. Ms. Yotes is our technology queen, the vice president, and she has created a handout that was sent to you. I hope you all got a chance to look at it. It talks about how we had 175 people at the library a couple times. We had a big church concert at Rejoice Lutheran, and then we were going to be in the Arts Center May 2nd, but that didn't work out. And then we were going to do some other stuff the end of May that didn't work out. But we did manage to put on 3 concerts, even though it was a little tough. Our income this year was about 61% from private corporate sponsors and 39% from our membership dues. We don't know what that will look like next year. So we know that going into the new year or our new season, we're going to focus on building our library. Music library is very expensive. Even if you just go buy one piece of piano music or flute music, the music expense is big. Ms. Hamilton works cheaper than any of the other local community conductors around, and she donates a lot of her time at that. And we have a lot of members that donate in-kind donations, like one of our violins makes sure the truck and the stands and the percussion and everything gets to where it needs to be. So those are our expenses in that year. We're looking at next year's budget to put on this ball, and we've included $1,500 to make that happen, because we want to use everything the Art Center has available to us. We understand that there's going to be catering, that there will be beer and wine or some sort of beverages for people, and we've already set up our fall schedule of rehearsals. We've set up our concert dates. We've been in connection with Alec over there to make sure that we're doing everything proactive we can. It's just so much fun to grow a group like this, and we're growing. So without further ado, I would just like to ask you to consider sponsoring us again. I think we're a good thing for Coppell. I know we are. So without further ado, I'll take whatever questions you have for me.
Thank you. I just want to verify a couple of things that you said. You said that you grew from 15 to 44 members. And then you said you were changing your request from the 16,320 that is in our original documents to the 14,800.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Nope, hearing none. I want to thank you for being here and appreciate you taking the time and walking us through. Your presentation had a lot of great information in it and probably answered most people's questions. So thank you very much for your time. And we will continue our budget process through the summer, and we will be back in touch.
Okay, I appreciate your time. We really want to build our library so that we don't have to reuse music and keep everybody actively involved and have dancers and work with the Arts Council and have a lot of multicultural, multi-artistic events. It's just a good thing for the community.
thank you for all you do for us and for our city. Thank you. Okay, the next on the agenda is the Coppell Family Y.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Mayor, hello.
Well, hello. How are you doing, Tyler?
Very good. We made our announcement today that we will be opening a week from today, so June 15th. So today is a good day to work at the Coppell YMCA. Indeed.
You've probably been anxiously awaiting that.
Yes, indeed. It's been quite different around here over the past 8 weeks, like most people and most businesses, but excited to kind of talk to everybody a little bit about what we're asking for this year, which is different than kind of previous years. So just to kind of get started about us as a nonprofit, and you can go ahead to the next slide. Just kind of want to run down a few programs that we do just in case some people might not be familiar. One of our biggest is safety around water. And that is something as simple as going to a school district and having conversations with kids and presenting them the different supplies that they might use, whether it be kickboards or floating devices or what a lifeguard might use, to actually having the swim lessons. And in previous years, when we've asked the city for grant money, we used it for our Go for Green program, which is our children in our camp programs, primarily Coppell residents, not completely. In previous years, they would go for their green band, which means they could swim anywhere in the pool because they have the skills needed to swim. And if they got tired, they know how to take their breaks and swim towards the edge of the pool for that safety and also call for help. Team programs, very large for us with the Coppell School District. We send over 100 kids to youth and government programs throughout the year. Our sports program, both with the city and the school district, we use both fields in the gyms, and kids from, again, primary Coppell are in these programs. It's about a 70-30 split, mostly in the basketball side. Community health, this is actually obviously something we're very passionate about as a Y, the health side of things. Chronic disease, both for children, adults, the childhood obesity programs that we hold. And currently, one of our plans over the next 5 years is the mental health side. We don't exactly know from a YMCA-wide, Metroplex-wide, what that means for everybody. But from a Coppell standpoint, individualized, we're building relationships with other clinics that are prescribing wellness and exercise instead of pills for mental health. And there's parameters behind that. There's kind of ranges of, we're not going to have somebody, for example, who may be diagnosed with schizophrenia, but maybe somebody who is stressed and has depression. So there's different ranges that would be involved in that kind of diagnosis. So please move on to the next slide. So during the shutdown, like everybody, we were trying to find our space. And what's really interesting about a YMCA, no matter where it is and no matter what country it may be in, they are never the same. We have to take our why and we have to listen to our community and what does our community need. And our community needed what a lot of communities needed across the United States. And maybe for the first time in a very long time, a lot of Ys were doing the exact same thing across the nation for their communities. So we had free childcare for anyone who had to go to work. It wasn't just people who work for the city. It wasn't just our doctors. It was anyone who had to go to a job. If you worked at the grocery store, if you worked at a bank, it did not matter. We started with having a fee, and through grants and donations throughout different places in the Metroplex, we were able to make that free for anyone who signed up. We just ended it on Friday and started our summer camp on Monday, but we averaged in Coppell over 25 kids a week. We had a lot of parameters set in place, a lot of safety protocol in place. The kids at first, it was hard. They all had to wear masks. They had to stay away from each other. But by the time we got to that last week, it was the new norm for them, and they were having just as much fun as they would in a normal camp. And the parents obviously very grateful that we were able to provide that for them. We had our senior wellness check-ins that we did every 2 weeks. So we call anyone who was a member of our Y over the age of 65 and check in with them, see what they needed. If they needed a grocery store run, we would make that run for them, or find someone in the community that can make that run for them if we couldn't do it. And then also we were a hub for all donations that would be spread out to other Metroplex YMCA sites that had the child care. So being so close to the highways and to all the donation sites, they bring it here, and then we would kind of drive it out and get it to where the kids were and the other places that needed to be. Next slide, please. So this year, we want to talk about, first of all, why we asked for a little bit more. So, last year, we were granted $15,000. That completely helps the Go for Green program. We're able to provide it for about 350 kids throughout the summer. This year, more than ever, we're going to have a large need in our community to get back into our Y, to start getting back to that normal, to start being a part of the membership again, to start doing the programs. We typically give out around $250,000 a year just in the Coppell branch. We only raise about $160,000. Then on top of that, we get the grant from the city of about $15,000. So we're about $75,000 short already year over year. We try to increase that goal of fundraising. It's a process as we build our board of directors and we build our staff and our relationships back with our community members and our membership base is starting to grow. It's getting easier to get those fundraising dollars, but we have a pretty large need daily that comes in that people are asking for help. And one of our key initiatives is to never turn anybody away for inability to pay. So we want to have money set aside strictly 100% for Coppell residents, whether it is Go for Green, or they want to sign up for private swim lessons, or they just want a family membership to come and spend time together, or any program that they choose. We want to be able to have those funds available for them. We see a very large need throughout the rest of 2020, and it's going to go through 2021. And people are going to come in droves, and they're going to be asking for more, and we want to be able to provide that for them. And our typical process that says, show us your taxes, show us your income statement, they're going to be a little flawed because not everyone can have their taxes done for what they're going through right now. So we're not going to be very difficult and hard on these people, because we want to get them in the door. We want to get them back to that normal. We want to start that process of getting their exercising, their mental health, and their relationships, and their programming, and just kind of get back to normal and be there for the people in our community. So I hope that kind of explains a little bit why we're asking for a little bit more and why we kind of changed course a little bit. When we filled out our application, we knew this was coming. We knew we were going to shut down soon. We knew we were going to be smaller, but we were going to have a larger need. And being smaller as an organization in regards to a staff side doesn't change the amount of need that we're going to need for our community. And we just want to be able to provide that for them as soon as possible. So thank you. And I welcome any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Tyler. Are there any questions for Tyler? Man, you must give a really good presentation.
I hope so.
Thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate it. This is the very beginning of our budget cycle of workshops and those types of things. So thank you very much for the information, and you'll be hearing from us soon. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Mike, if I may. Mike, we've heard several of the groups talk about declining revenues or due to the COVID-19. Is any of the county funding, state funding that we got eligible for some of those fees, some of those losses?
Yes, and what y'all can't see is I had just gone down to ask Casey, too many names, to follow up with Tyler tomorrow, and I'm going to follow up with Charles Reed on the daycare expenses specifically. When you read the criteria, it's kind of pointed, and it doesn't appear some of those qualify, but Charles will hopefully answer that question for us, and I can give you a good report tomorrow night.
Thank you.
One of the things that I know like the Chamber of Commerce was looking forward to was that some of that PPP money might be available to the 501, not 6? Yeah. So that has not yet happened. It might be in the next, I'm sorry, we're all buzzing because there's an Amber Alert. Sorry. So some of this might happen in the next several weeks. We don't know, but that's something else that we can look at if we end up doing some hard decisions. One of the things that we typically go through this. So one of the things that Mike and I had talked about was potential areas that we could fund some of these. So I want Mike to go through that quickly. The goal is tonight to get through this list and see what we are interested in funding at this point. It obviously can change going forward, but figure out what we want to do so we can get through the budget process. But if some of that can be done in other areas, then that might help our budgeting long term as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you know, but just in case, the hotel motel tax has provisions that it can be used for certain items. Those include in this case, the Historical Society funds could come out of the hotel motel tax. Things associated with the arts can come out of the hotel motel tax. There is a provision that limits the amount for the arts to 15%. So it's based on the net, and we'll talk about hotel motel a little bit later tonight. Working with Mindy and Jennifer and Casey and Kim, while we have more hotels opening up, given COVID, we did not increase any revenue, even though we're going to have many more hotel rooms. But the one agreement we have with Sheraton Four Points brings their hotel motel tax incentive down from where it was to 75%. So that gives us a net of $100,000. So we have funds in the hotel motel tax that could fund the Historical Society and could fund up to $15,000 of the arts request. Not that these are requests tonight, but a portion of the funds can be used for marketing, for bringing people. So you heard the chamber mentioned that earlier. Mindy's program that does billboards, for example, to bring people in could be funded through the hotel motel tax. So you have options as you go through it tonight. What I would ask is that, this is going to sound a little strange, don't necessarily concern yourself with where the money's coming from. It's just, what do you want to fund? And then we will work and come back to you later on through the process and be able to say, okay, here's how we did this, here's how we did this, and here's how we did that. Okay?
Any questions about that? All right, so let's go down this list. Does anybody have an issue with the Ensemble of Texas? Is it the Ballet Ensemble of Texas? How about Denton Advocacy Center? Yeah. Community... Christian Community Action. I am guessing what the first number is on our word because I got this printed badly. Christian Community Action. Oh, thanks. Coppell Arts Council. Coppell Chamber of Commerce. The Coppell Community Orchestra, that will change to 14.8 from the 16,320. Any questions about that?
I just want to clarify that we're talking just if these are what we want to fund, but not the amount that we want to fund, correct?
No, we're talking about
Full funding?
Yeah, we have to, this is the start of the budget process, yes.
Okay. I know that. I just wanted to make sure that I was on the same page.
Yes. The Coppell Historical Society. MetroCrest Services. Family Place. Woven. Or the YMCA. Okay. Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my only comment in general is this always is such a tough process because we're being asked to kind of identify what we are willing to fund before we know what funds we have available. I appreciate the city manager's suggestion that there may be some alternative sources here. But I guess as I listen to these presentations, they all have very valid reasons for needing the funding. In particular, the folks like the council or the chamber and the YMCA that are actually doing above and beyond because of the COVID situation. I guess in saying all of that, I'm saying I would want to reserve the opportunity once we understand our revenue position and the need to set a tax rate to come back and revisit these based on the overall situation.
While I go ahead. No, go ahead.
I feel like I just interrupted the mayor. I don't like doing that. That's not comfortable. I just want to be clear as y'all went through this evening, what Casey's going to do is she's going to plug in the numbers that are here based on the input that was received tonight. And then as we go through and identify, okay, let's just say Hotel Motel pays for Historical Society, we'll assign those. And then when we go through the general fund, we will already have discussed then here's what is left to be funded through the general fund based on our recommendation to you. So at that point, you'll have, so it's not going to be at the end. You'll have an opportunity to actually make that kind of determination earlier with still some flexibility to go. So that's the process we're going to follow unless you tell us differently tonight.
Thank you for that. You said it much better than I would have even imagined to have said it. So, okay. All right. So is everybody good with where we are on service organization funding request? Because then we get to move to the exciting stuff. Water and sewer budget. And Miss Kim is here to help us go through that.
Excited about water and sewer. Kim.
She's working on sharing the screen, Julian. We'll take a pause.
Julian is coming to work his magic so we can share the screen.
It's been a while since I've been in here. I've forgotten everything. Before I begin, I was asked to make sure that we stated that the information presented tonight contains preliminary numbers. The purpose of the workshop is to seek feedback from council, and there's no council action that we're requesting. So now with that disclaimer, I'd like to dive into the numbers. And we'll begin on page 5. But before we do, I want to talk about a little bit about the Water Sewer Fund. It is an enterprise fund, which by definition means that the charges for services or the revenue that's generated by the Water Sewer Fund are required by governmental accounting standards to cover the full cost of providing the services. And the full cost of providing water and sewer services includes the cost from Dallas Water Utilities, which provides the water to the city, the charges from Trinity River Authority, who treats our wastewater, and then for the annual operating and maintenance costs, which includes salaries, supplies, annual maintenance and repair of the water system, which includes the pumps and the water tower, the lift stations, as well as the equipment that employees use to service the system. In addition, the revenue needs to fund the cost of maintaining or replacing the water sewer system infrastructure, as well as any capital costs to expand the system. I think it's also important to note that the Water Sewer Fund does not receive any revenue from property taxes or sales tax, strictly user charges. I would also like to point out that the water and sewer rates were not increased in February of 2019 or February of 2020, and there were a couple of reasons for not increasing the rates. First, the new advanced water meters were being installed, and it was important, we thought, to allow customers to easily see the reason for the change in their water bill was related to consumption and had nothing to do with a change in rates. In addition, Dallas Water Utilities settled its dispute with the Sabine River Authority and actually lowered their rates in 2019 from about 45.5 cents per thousand gallons to 36.5 cents, so a 20% decrease in their volume rate. Their demand rate was also lowered from about $280,000 per million gallons of contracted daily demand, which our daily demand rate is 18.5 million gallons. And so it went from $280,000 to about $276,000, so a 1.4% decrease. In 2020, the volume rate was increased a little over 3% to about a little over 37.5 cents, and the demand rate was only increased 0.76, to 278,000. Neither the volume rate or the demand rate have reached the 2018 levels that we were seeing. So I just wanted to start with that information. And then we can begin on page 5 to go over the departments. The first division or department is the utility operations, and this division is responsible for maintaining and operating the city's water distribution and sewer collection facilities, as well as other field-related activities. The proposed budget of this division is approximately $2.4 million, which represents 13% of the total water sewer fund expenses. This department is down approximately $328,000 or 12% from the current year adopted budget, and that's primarily because the division requested $290,000 less for capital outlay for fiscal year 21. The capital outlay amount requested is $48,000, and that's to purchase an F-150 truck at a cost of $38,000, and then it also includes $10,000 to purchase water meters, and those are so that we have meters on hand should a developer or builder come in and need a water meter. Then we sell those to them. The requested budget is about $3.2 million less than the capital outlay shown in the 2019 five-year forecast for fiscal year 21, and that's related to about $2.9 million is now included in a bond issue rather than funding in the line item, in the department's line item. In addition, the five-year forecast included 2 new positions, which are not requested in the proposed budget. And so the related equipment that was in the five-year forecast for those 2 positions is also not requested. And then there were a couple of equipment replacement purchases that are being postponed. And you can stop me if you have any questions as we go through. So if there's no questions on this, then I'll move on to utility billing. Utility billing is the division. It's responsible for billing and collections, and customer service related to, for example, water usage inquiries and requests for turning water on and off. This division's proposed budget is approximately $763,000, which is approximately 4% of the total proposed water sewer fund expenses. This division is about $73,600, or a 10.7% increase. And the primary reason for the increase in the proposed budget is the inclusion of funding for temporary staffing to provide coverage to our customers when employees are involved in the utility billing software conversion. And it also includes overtime for staff involved in the software conversion. And I'll talk a little bit more about the software conversion at the end. The next line item department is cost of water. This division is where the cost of purchasing wholesale water from Dallas Water Utilities is recorded. The proposed budget is approximately $6.6 million, which is about 37% of the total water sewer fund expenses. The proposed budget is approximately 0.03% higher than the current year adopted. And that is because for fiscal year 20, the budget was based on historical information, as Dallas Water Utilities does not provide us proposed rate information until July or August and of each year, and their council doesn't adopt their rates until mid-September. So our fiscal year 20 budget anticipated an overall increase in the cost of water of 4%. Dallas Water Utilities only increased their rates 2%, and so the rate, as mentioned earlier, is still less than the 2018 rate, and one of the factors contributing to no rate increase. A future amendment will be brought forward to reduce this line item. And one last thing to mention about the cost of water is that when we purchase water from the city of Dallas, there's two rates. The first rate is the volume rate, and that's based on per 1,000 gallons. The other rate is the demand rate, which is similar to our base rate. And that is almost $5 million that we pay annually for that, and we pay that whether we take 1 gallon of water or 18.5 million gallons of water a day. We incur that cost. And I think it's important to point out that a 4% increase in the demand rate would take us to $289,000 per 18.5 million gallons. So we've budgeted about $5.3 million for the demand rate and $1.2 million for the volume rate. The cost of water, 80% of the cost is fixed and has nothing to do with how much water we actually pull from Dallas Water Utilities. The next is the cost of sewer. This is the division where the cost charged for the treatment of wastewater performed by Trinity River Authority is recorded. The proposed budget for this division is almost $4.6 million and represents 26% of the total water sewer budget expenses. This is a decrease of 3% when compared to the current year adopted. Again, the fiscal year 20 budget was based on preliminary information from Trinity River Authority, which showed that they were going to increase rates 9%, which is the increase that was reflected in the fiscal year 20 budget. However, when Trinity River did their rate increase, it was actually only 2%, which is, again, one of the factors I previously mentioned for not increasing rates last year. And an amendment will be brought forward to adjust that. For fiscal year 21, TRA is anticipating increasing the rate from $2.99 per 1,000 gallons to $3.19 per 1,000. It's a 6.4% increase in their rate. This increase is based on information provided by Trinity River Authority in February of 2020. The information also forecasts rates for the next 4 years. They estimate increases between 2022 and 2025 will be in the 1% to 3% range, which is down compared to what they provided in their projections last year, which were in the 4% to 7% range. They're still issuing the same amount of debt, so I'm not sure where this decrease is coming from. I did notice that the amount that they're anticipating their debt rate is down, as well as their O&M rate. The cost of water and the cost of sewer make up 63% of the water sewer budget, and these are costs that we cannot control. I think it's also important to mention that the rates based on our cost from Dallas Water Utilities and Trinity River, any increase that we would do to our rate is not, it's brought forward. So it's not included in here, it's brought forward to you once we actually have the actual rates. Okay. The next division is debt service. This is a division where the annual principal and interest payments for the water sewer fund bonds are recorded. The proposed budget is $998,925, and it's for the principal and interest payments on the existing debt, which has an outstanding principal balance of $9,160,000. The debt service division is 6% of the water sewer fund expenses. I'd like to mention that staff has included $15.5 million in the 2020 bond sale for water sewer projects. This will be brought forward tomorrow. It's on the agenda tomorrow for the notice of intent. The proceeds would be used to fund the Sandy Lake Lift Station, which is $6 million, year one funding of a water system redundancy project, which is $5 million, continuation of our inflow and infiltration repairs, which is $3 million, and an additional funding for the generator for the Village Parkway pump station, which is an additional $1.5 million. I believe that the bond issue would require a 4% increase in our current water and sewer rates. The next area is combined.
But that's not reflected in this?
It's not reflected in all. We have a rate study that's going on right now, so I'm going to talk to you about that also.
No, I meant your debt service is not reflected in this.
No, because it hasn't been approved. And so we don't, it's going to be $1.5 million will be the principal and interest if it's approved.
If it's approved, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The last department is combined services. The items recorded in this division include general property and liability insurance and the administrative reimbursement for services provided by the general fund to the water sewer fund. And those would be services from finance, HR, purchasing, enterprise solutions, the city manager's office, and engineering. It also includes a transfer to the capital replacement fund. The proposed budget for this division is approximately $2.5 million and is 14% of the total water sewer fund expenses. The budget is approximately $344,000 or 16% more than the current year adopted budget. And the primary reason for this is an increase of $400,000 in the administrative reimbursement from the water sewer fund to the general fund. And this increase is based on the current cost allocation study that we just had. So are there any questions on any of the department expenses?
Yes. Kim, software conversion, you're going to talk about that, are you? Separate?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes, I will. Is that it? Okay, so now I'm going to back us up. Talk into this. I'm going to back up to page 3. And on this page, I'm going to be focusing on the far right column marked fiscal year 21 budget proposed. So we budgeted $12.1 million approximately for water sales. Water sales represent 61% of the total budget, and the proposed budget is 2% less than the current year adopted budget shown in this schedule. And again, a budget amendment will be brought forward. In addition, a rate increase has not been included. The proposed budget is based on an increase of 35 accounts and selling 2.6 billion gallons of water. And 2.6 billion gallons is a typical year of water sales. The next line item to focus on is the sewer service sales. And we've budgeted $7.1 million, and it represents 36% of the total budget for the fund. The proposed budget for the sewer sales is 4.7% less than the current year adopted budget shown in this schedule. And again, these the fiscal year 20 will need to be amended because we did not do a rate increase. The sewer sales line item is also based on an increase of 30 accounts and billing to treat 1.8 billion gallons of wastewater. The total of these two revenue streams is $19.2 million and represents 97% of the fund's revenues. This is a decrease of $600,000 or 3% when compared to the current year adopted budget. The remaining line items make up 3% of the total fund's total revenues. Most of the items are remaining flat, with the exception that we decreased water and sewer impact fees, meter sales, and sale of city property for a combined decrease of $160,000. Speaking with the Director of Community Development, it was determined that the impact fees and meter sales should be reduced to reflect Coppell's limited space to build and the slowing of the economy that resulted from COVID-19. Sale of city property was primarily the sale of the old water meters. Since that project's complete, old meters have been sold. We won't have any additional meters to sell. In addition, since equipment is not being replaced and it's being retained, we won't have any sale of the old equipment. So are there any questions on the revenue of the fund?
Questions? I don't see any.
Okay, now the part that I like. Not that I don't like numbers, but I did want to update you on a few water sewer happenings. First, the advanced water meter project is complete, and we installed 13,500 meters. Not only has this project brought more accurate meters, but it's also contributed to proactive customer service. Since installing the meters, we were able to run a report that shows meters registering continuous usage. The first report that we ran had 1,800 meters listed on it that were showing, appeared that they had leaks. So staff started with the meter showing the highest consumption, continual usage, and they've been making calls every day of every week to notify people of their potential leaks. Before they contact a plumber, we discuss with them ways that they can look to find out where their leak is, because it could be just a leaky toilet, a leaking faucet, maybe it's their irrigation, and staff has even went out to help them isolate whether it's something inside or something outside. We also have 2,154 customers signed up for the customer portal. That is 16% of all meters have a customer signed up. Census has told me that they're usually only see 9 to 10% of total customers sign up for the portal. So I feel pretty good. We also feel like we're increasing water usage awareness. Individuals who question their usage, we direct them and help them go to the portal so that we can show them how to use it and examine their usage. We contact people if we see that they have high consumption. We share with them, if they call us, what their irrigation is using. We share with them how much their toilet uses, on average, how much a toilet uses, how much a dishwasher, washing machine, showers. We give them all of that information. We also have started the performance contracting. Can you believe it? It's been a year, almost. I mean, we pretty much finished residential last summer. So this last week, Siemens came out and they pulled 11 meters, just random sample of 11 meters. They will send them off to be tested. If you recall, they guarantee us a 98.5% accuracy of these meters. If they don't meet that accuracy, then there's some performance contracting money that they would need to give the city. I'll know the accuracy of those meters in 4 to 6 weeks, and I think that it's important for us to publicize that information to our citizens so that they know that we are monitoring the accuracy of these meters. I mentioned that we are doing another rate study. So why another rate study? We wanted to explore a new rate structure that encourages conservation. which will impact how quickly our daily demand rate grows. It's at 18.5. Do we want to keep it from getting to 19.5 or going higher? And so if you recall, we pay $5 million for that right to demand 18.5. Based on today's rates, if we had to increase it to 19.5, that would be another $278,000 that it would cost us for water. So we think exploring a new rate structure that encourages conservation is appropriate, since customers have the customer portal. They can monitor their usage, they can see, and they can set up usage alerts. So this rate study, it's not only looking at what do the rates need to be based on our current rate structure for water and sewer, but it's also looking at an increasing block rate structure for water and winter averaging for sewer. So those would be new types, a new way of billing our customers.
I don't understand winter averaging.
So a lot of cities do winter averaging for sewer, and what they do is they usually take November through March when you're typically not watering, and they average what that is, and that's what you're billed for on sewer during the summer months, because more than likely your consumption is for irrigation. And we can't meter irrigation versus domestic, what you're using inside of your house. We don't meter sewer, sorry. Yes, that's what I meant.
I was like,
sorry.
What?
We do have the ability to
Yes, we don't meter sewer.
Yes.
Meter the sewer, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you. So in addition to exploring ways to control the growth of the daily demand, Public Works has identified additional water sewer capital projects. So in 2017, when we did the last rate study, we had identified $30 million in projects. The amount is now $60,680,000, and part of that increase is attributed to, one, is a change in philosophy concerning street projects. Historically, streets projects funded by the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund or the sales tax percentage has been paid when water, that money has been used to also pay when water and sewer lines need to be replaced as part of the street project. The change in the sales tax rule has required us to rethink that practice. And so instead of the street projects paying for that, the water and sewer fund will now pay for those replacements. They also did an asset management study was performed, and additional projects were identified as part of that study. So, and as I mentioned, while doing the rate study, we also asked them to look at the water sewer reimbursement, and they did identify that it should be increased this year by $400,000. So we have done that also. The software conversion is the next area. Staff has started working with Tyler on the utility billing phase of the PEER project. And we are scheduled to go live with the new billing software and a new customer service portal. And the customer service portal is the one where you can go look at your bill and pay your bill online. And those are to go live next July. So the COVID-19 and all the social distancing hasn't stopped the progress of that, because they're able to meet on Zoom. So, and then the last project I wanted to update you on is we have started a partnership with New Tech High School. We began working with the teachers at New Tech concerning projects for their students. We met with an AP Stats teacher, an English teacher, and the director of libraries for the district. A science teacher and a business marketing teacher may also be interested in partnering with us. Their desire was to find a project that students in the different classes could work together to create a project to present to the city. Unfortunately, COVID-19 hit, so that project got put on hold. However, we're still working together with one of the teachers, and he just contacted me late last week that he still plans to resume incorporating this project into the next school year. And they're actually hoping to develop a project that the New Tech students can roll out to the elementary school students. And so what did we ask them to do? We met with the teachers, and we found that they wanted to provide students with a problem statement that the students would then determine how to solve. The problem statement that we provided was very broad and a high level, and it was how can we achieve water sustainability in our community. We also shared specific things that we would like to accomplish. For example, higher usage of our customer portal, more in the community aware of the water that various household items and tasks use, and an understanding of the water and sewer system and how it works, what's all involved, and the cost that is involved in maintaining. And so we took 56 students and 4 staff members on a tour of our water sewer system before COVID-19 broke out. They actually visited the water tower and went inside and asked a lot of questions and got to learn what the purpose of the water tower is. We took them to the DeForest lift station where we explained to them how the lift station works, and then we took them to Village Parkway Pump Station. They were provided information concerning the education and certification that employees need to have to be hired to care for our water and sewer system, how many miles of water and sewer line we have, how much water is used each day, which none of them could guess, how much water is used each day or even annually. They had no idea how much it costs to run our water sewer system. They were fascinated with the SCADA system that we use to monitor the water levels in the water tower. And the pumps when the pumps need to turn on. We talked to them about how we have to maintain our water and sewer lines underground. You can't see them, but if they break, they will know it. So we educated them on all of that. And I think, I know the facilitators were excited, and we're excited to be taking this out to our community and educating our young adults on the water sewer system so that they understand the impact that it has. That's what I'm excited about this time.
Well, I can tell you that if you can then turn around and take this to the elementary schools, then there will be people, adults,
yes,
parents that learn.
Yes.
So that would be pretty awesome.
And that's what they're hoping, the New Tech High, that's what they're looking at, is what project can they design that they can take to those students to help educate them and have them take things home. So it's a broader-based project.
That's awesome.
More than what we could do. So we're excited. Are there any other questions?
Any questions? Nancy.
Thank you. Kim, just out of curiosity, have you noticed since, let's say, mid-March to where we are now, has there been an increase, COVID, more people at home, increase in our consumption with so many people working from home and just spending more time there?
We have seen an increase in residential water usage, and it was interesting. There were some commercial accounts that had no water usage, and we actually went and made sure that those businesses were closed because we just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything wrong with the meter. And we found that there were some commercial that had no usage.
So overall, did that even out or?
I think that we're still down a little bit on usage overall.
That used to bum people out.
If I'm honest, I'm praying for a really hot, dry summer. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, since it just started this week, you're doing good.
It can rain over my house.
Okay, Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the report. As always, the facts you're on top of the facts. I guess first a comment and then a couple of questions. Congratulations on presenting a budget. If 63% of your your expenses are cost of water and cost of sewer, and it looks like cost of water is stagnant and cost of sewer is down 3%, then to present total expenses going down 5%, I think it shows a lot of work, and I appreciate that. Couple of questions. As you present reduced consumption, reduced revenue for next year, maybe you said, but help me understand the logic behind that.
I'm sorry, the reduced consumption.
Yeah, it looked like you were projecting reduced revenue for next year from usage. Did I misunderstand that?
It's not from usage. It's the reduced revenues because we did not increase the 2020 budget is showing an increase in rates, which we did not do. And so I'm bringing the 2021 budget down to level as if we did not increase rates last year.
But the assumption is consumption stays at the same?
Yes.
Sorry about assumption and consumption. Yeah.
The only difference consumption is we anticipate 2.6 billion gallons of sales, which is what we typically assume. The only difference is we are adding 35 accounts to water and 30 accounts to sewer.
Okay. And then last question, we're always looking at the days of reserves in this account. How does your budget affect that?
Let me grab that. So based on the budget, before issuing any debt, we have 196 days of unassigned retained earnings. However, we are showing about $3 million in assigned, and those are, we have $2 million for water sewer infrastructure maintenance, and that money is coming from refunds we've received from the from Dallas Water Utilities for the Sabine River Authority, and we also have received money back from TRA because our flow has reduced. And so we're putting that into a water sewer infrastructure, so hopefully that would decrease the amount that we need for bonds. Okay, so our unreserved fund balance is about $9.6 million, which equates to about 196 days.
And remind me what your goal is?
180. That's
awesome.
That's in the policy.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you. Great job. Always excited about the different things that are going on. Okay, so the next group is the special revenue funds. Welcome, Casey.
Thank y'all so much. Is this better? Okay. I want to hear myself. All right. Well, like I said, we are going to go through the special revenue funds, and just a reminder, and for all those folks that are watching from home on Zoom, because this is super interesting to not just us. The whole point of special revenue funds is that we have a dedicated revenue source that is restricted in some way, be it legal or with intent. And those funds that we collect can only be used for very certain and specified instances. For example, if we have this first one, which is recreational programs, that was a special revenue that collected collected dollars. Sorry, this is strange for me. Collected dollars that could only be used for recreational programs. Whenever we closed that funds, just because we were no longer collecting revenues for it doesn't mean we get to spend the money however we choose. We're still required to spend those funds in accordance with the fund. So we are spending those funds down mindfully, but only for recreational programs. As I go through each one of these funds, I'll very high level talk about what their revenue sources are. If we have identified any expenditures at this point in time, what often happens is if we don't have identified expenditures during the budget process and we get into next year's budget, we will come back to council with a budget amendment request and amend the budget to reflect those. And as I go through, if y'all have any questions, I'll do a brief pause at the end of every fund just to check in with y'all and answer any questions that you have on that particular fund. All right, so if y'all want to pop on over to page 7, that is the hotel occupancy tax fund. And touching on what Mike had talked about earlier whenever we had our service organizations up, there are some differences in the revenues next year in that we will have more hotels coming online. We are anticipating 2 being opened this year and possibly another 1 or 2 next year. They have different agreements in place, but because of COVID, we are expecting a much lower occupancy rate than what we had been looking at originally of around 60% for each of the hotels. Given that, we are anticipating maintaining the initial collections to be $300,000, and with the rebate agreements we have in place, we would keep approximately $100,000. If we would like to further that discussion on using some of those retained dollars for the service organizations that qualify, we can absolutely update this fund and present it that way.
Gary?
Thanks. I'm sorry to go back. The recreational fund, is it possible, should we consider that fund having any ability to transfer dollars to the YMCA in as much as they are a recreational group?
We can definitely look at the statutes for that, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Just so everyone knows, anytime y'all ask a question, Casey goes to type the question in, so that's why she's pausing, and you may not notice that.
I'm recording a novel, and it's very interesting. All right, and did we have any questions on the hotel occupancy tax? Okay, then we will skip.
Wes?
Sorry, Casey. Yeah, I did have one. And I'm probably confusing different points, but the 15% that we talked about during the charitable groups, where did that 15% rule come from?
Actually in the tax code.
I was going to say it's in statute.
So that, okay. That answers that one. Thank you.
Did we have anything else on the hot fund? Okay. Then we will look at the Municipal Drainage Utility District, or the DUD fund. The revenues for this fund come from $1 on the residential utility bills and a sliding scale for the commercial. I want to point out for the stormwater revenue that we have included here at the $250,000, because of the way that the timing works, y'all have not approved the master fee schedule. We will do that as part of the budget process later on in the summer. And so right now, this fund is showing a just slight uptick in revenue. With the proposal that Kent's group has, we would look at increasing that, likely through an amendment after October 1, to be much higher.
So we had in our previous, in the water sewer, we had planned for an increase and we budgeted for it. But we're not planning for an increase here, or we are planning for an increase here?
We are planning for a slight increase due to the increase in accounts, but not because of the fee structure right now.
Okay.
And we would wait to bring that increase after that fee structure was adopted.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, the proposed fees were just presented to you, probably end of March, end of April. So we did not have a chance to put the new fee structure into this budget presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know that you were hanging out back there.
Yeah, I'm hanging out here.
Just seeing you back in the, the audience here. I should have known you were there. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, and then for expenditures for fiscal year 21, we're looking at some costs associated with the Earth Fest event, assuming that is still going forward at this point. And then we also participate in a couple of the different COG programs that have to do with stormwater planning and monitoring. We also pay for street sweeping and erosion control throughout our creeks. And we have budgeted for next year in the services line item, $200,000 for a study on the storm sewer system. This is just a continuation of what the Public Works Group is doing as far as getting a handle on all of the different pieces that need to be maintained, need to be improved, need to be reviewed in general, so that as we go forward with the DUD and with potential increases in fees, we know that we're setting rates appropriately. We know that our infrastructure is being maintained appropriately. Do we have any questions on the DUD? Okay, then we will flip over to the donations. And for donations, these are just our normal, basically one-offs because somebody would like to provide a donation to the city. Oftentimes, as you can see in the revenues and the expenditures, they are earmarked for particular divisions such as fire or senior center. The only things that we budget for expenditures in here are going to be training for fire, specifically related to the regional training for EMS, and then also for the animal shelter. We receive dollars that they use to spay and neuter strays that they pick up. Any questions on donations? Okay. Then we will flip over to the Park Special Revenue Fund. The revenues here, as you can see, are not much. That's because it comes from new home construction fees. We are not building a lot of new homes, so we don't have a lot of funds coming in. And we only budget things here whenever we identify certain projects. I do want to point out that in the current year amended budget, we had an encumbrance carryover that we will be lowering. It says right now that we have approximately $367,000 current year, which would overdraw us. But whenever we looked into our system and checked with the department, the actual expenditures that will come forward later on will be at that $340,000 mark. Any questions on the Park Special Revenue Funds? All right. We will go over to the Tree Preservation Fund. This comes from developers paying for tree reparations as part of the development process. Again, because we have such little development going on, we don't see a lot of funds coming into this, and the only thing that we budget out of this fund anymore is for the normal tree trimming, tree removal, stub grinding that has to happen just throughout the city. Any questions on Tree Preservation Fund? I like it. All right. And then for the next one, which is Police Special Revenue Funds, the majority of these come from different forfeitures and seizures, grants, or donations specific to the police department. We don't budget forfeitures or seizures. Those always come as an amendment because we can never tell you who we're going to seize money from and just how much. And if we could, most of us would have used the power for lottery winnings. The only things that we have budgeted for next year are training for command staff, some supplies such as replacement body armor, uniforms for the Honor Guard, and this is where our National Night Out program is budgeted. Thank you. Any questions on the Police Special Revenue Fund? All right, we will go to the Municipal Court Security Special Revenue Fund. Most of the court special revenue funds that we collect have certain dollars that are associated with a very specific type of ticket or fine. For the court security, revenues come from $3 that is assessed on each non-ordinance violation. The only expenditures we have budgeted for next year have to do with taser and body cam maintenance and warranty costs. Any questions on the municipal court security fund? Okay. Our next fund is the Juvenile Case Manager Fund, and revenues for this come from a $7 fee that is added to court costs for fine-only misdemeanors. And the only thing we budget here is for training for our juvenile case manager. Do we have any questions on the Juvenile Case Manager Fund?
This is growing. Is training the only thing that this can be used for?
It is not the only thing it can be used for. We are looking at different programs that we can identify.
Okay. Not that it's not a bad thing that it's growing. It's just if you have those funds there and there are other ways to spend them in a quality manner. Consistent.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, we will skip on down to the Child Safety Special Revenue Fund. And this comes from $25 from each ticket that is issued in a school zone. The only things that we budget out of this fund right now are educational supplies that have to do with the Explorers program. So we have police officers that run the Explorers program and take them on competitions and do different exercises and training with them. Any questions on child safety? All right, our next one is going to be the Municipal Court Technology Special Revenue Fund. And the revenues here are $4 per non-ordinance violations. And at this point, we have not identified anything for next year. We did spend a fair amount of funds over the last year and a half for the Encode implementation from court. That went live in May. So as we get going next year, we may be able to identify other needs that are directly associated with Encode after it gets up and going. Any questions on court technology? All right, the next one is going to be judicial efficiency. And the revenues here come from a $6 non-ordinance violation. That $6 fee does not come to us in its entirety. We only collect 60 cents of that, with the additional $5.40 going to the state each year. And we have not identified any uses for next year for the Judicial Efficiency Fund. We had been using a lot of the funds whenever we switched to the new warrant delivery system with Intech. So we were letting this fund build back up.
Question on this one, Casey. Are we required by the state to collect this fee from the violations?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, too, that we don't get to charge an administrative fee to the state for anything that we collect on their behalf.
That is not reciprocated, is it?
No, ma'am, it is not.
So does the state have the same restrictions on this that we do?
I will check into that for you.
I'm just guessing, because there's a lot of these types of things that the funds are just sitting there, and we would hope that they would increase their efficiency.
Judiciously.
Thank you very much. That's a very good one.
All right, we will move on to the red light enforcement. So as you all know, the red light program was discontinued by state legislature last year. Current year, we are spending down this fund. In August of last year, PD brought before y'all the body cam upgrade, and that is what we decided worked for this, and we're going to be closing out this fund.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question now. Casey, we've got several funds like this one that are, really a zero balance, zero use. Is there any thought to maybe sunsetting those at some point in the future?
Whenever we have special revenue funds that have no more revenue coming in this instance, we had a program that was actually discontinued. We will have that available to us. There are some that, even though we don't see much activity, we have to keep open should we receive more revenue.
Well, the one that there were several of them. The tree preservation fund, I think, was one. It's possible that we'll, have a developer come in and build a house or two somewhere along the way. Could we still go ahead and sunset that one, but yet still, I guess since it's a designated fund, you have to keep the fund open if you want to collect the fee. I got it.
Correct.
I had to talk that one through. Thank you.
All right. So do we have any other questions on the red light enforcement fund? Okay. Then we will flip over to the infrastructure maintenance fund. So this is one of our special revenue funds that collects sales tax. This is from our quarter-cent sales tax that is reserved for street maintenance specifically. We do something here also. If you'll notice, we have a transfer in that is part of this. That transfer in comes from the general fund in 3 different identified ways: facilities, streets, and traffic maintenance. We transfer that from the general fund over to IMF for administration ease, really, and so that we have a good cost on what it takes to adequately maintain all of our infrastructure, not just the quarter-cent approved by the voters. So for next year, I will point out that we are looking at only collecting a small portion of sales tax. This has to do mostly with the COVID-19 impacts that we are anticipating, and also gearing us up to be ready as an organization for when the sales tax rule does go into effect at the end of next year.
Jump in. So the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, the CRDC, and Crime Control District, we talked a little bit about it last Tuesday night. The rule has come out. We are working through the rule. The sales tax number, as she mentioned, is not only COVID-19, but primarily it is the sales tax being collected or impacted by 60% by the rule. So what you're going to see, not only tonight and when we get to the general fund on July 9th, I guess, is what the budget looks like with a 60% reduction in sales tax. And we have geared all our expenditures around that reduction. So while the rule itself doesn't go into effect until October of 21, as an organization, we are basically saying to you, we are planning as if this is the way that we will now be going forward for beginning in 2021. I had to say that slowly so it doesn't get so confusing. So I just want to make sure you understand that we are, for example, in about a week, we'll get the April report for sales tax. So we'll be able to take a look at that as it relates to the impact of COVID-19. Then in July, around July 15th, we'll have an opportunity to see the May impact of COVID-19. And so as we're walking through this, while y'all are looking at a 60% reduction in sales tax, we are also looking at the COVID impact and the impact of the sales tax rule. I'm saying all that because I think some of these numbers on sales tax are going to adjust. I don't know that now, but I think they're going to adjust in an upward fashion because the rule doesn't go into effect in 2021. Excuse me, fiscal year 2021. Yeah, I have to say that. Boy, that's a confusing thing, isn't it? So when we meet on July 9th, you will be looking at a budget based around a 60% reduction in sales tax. On July 10th, in the email that was sent out, Casey will be, we will be publishing a base budget that still incorporates the 60% reduction in sales tax. As the month of July goes on and we get the May report for sales tax, we are also going to be looking at making some adjustments in the sales tax as a whole because Rule 3.334 doesn't go into effect until October of 2021. I'll say it that way. How about that?
Fiscal year 2022.
Yeah, right. Fiscal year 21-22. So as you contemplate this evening and you go about it and you think about it, because we don't meet again for a month basically on the budget, just understand that what you're looking at today is somewhat dynamic as it relates to the sales tax numbers because we're basing it on what we believe a worst case scenario that doesn't actually happen for basically another year, but we have to take into account what COVID's doing. We won't have enough of that information for a couple of months. Does that make sense?
Everybody's shaking their head.
Yeah.
The other part to that Mike and I have talked about a little bit is that even though if we go ahead budget this year as if we do not have that sales tax, then we are putting ourselves in a position where we can even out a little bit more when it actually happens, or we can take those funds and use them for one-time things that hopefully will kind of get us in a good practice for the things to come. Because the 60% is probably the worst case scenario, but we don't know that. So it's...
And Mayor, and Mayor, one of the things we met with our attorney and consultant and Mindy last week, Jennifer, were y'all on the line? I don't remember if y'all were or not. But with the implementation of the sales tax rule, based on our reading of the rule, we've already identified one or two companies that no longer will be taken out as far as their sales tax. So that 60% may actually turn out to be only 50%. So over the next several months, that's what we're working on. That's the reason why I was saying to you, don't get married to the number with the full understanding that the rule doesn't even go into effect till 2021. So we're going to have a little bit of play, but our expenditure plan that you're going to see is based on the 60% reduction, if that makes sense. There's a chance that our revenues may be higher in the sales tax than what we're giving what we believe based on our interpretation of the rule, the worst case scenario. So we built our expenses around the worst case. Okay.
Exactly. So as I'm listening to you, the financial staff, is going to be spending a great deal of time actually looking at what's going to be going on in 21 or in 21, 22. Yeah, I can't get it either. 21, 22, so that we have some feel for that when we make these final decisions. We kind of know why we're making the decisions that we're making, I guess is what I'm saying, if we have to make those decisions in this year or for next year for 2021. I mean, it looks like to me that you're going to be looking ahead to prophesying what's going to be going on in 21, 22.
In essence, what we did is we took our revenue sales tax numbers that we've historically used and conservatively always been under generally about what we've been projecting. And we said, if we took the 1920 budget that we have right now, and we had a 60% reduction in sales tax, and we kind of talked about this in December, but if we had a 60% sales tax and reduction, what does this operation look like? Our staff has spent the entire winter and spring to this point designing an organization that meets the 60% reduction in sales tax. The budget that we're presenting to you for this coming year has the 60% reduction in sales tax built in right now. So that's what your fiscal year 21-22 is really going to look like. We're just saying, let's do it now and be prepared with the full understanding that over the next 2 months or so, we're going to have some play in the sales tax because we're going to be getting the COVID-19 information back and the rule doesn't go into effect. Does that help clarify? Okay.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gary.
Thank you. Mike, just so I can make sure I understand, not only are you looking at projecting that reduction on the revenue side, but then you're building your expense side to anticipate that as well?
We actually yes, sir. We started with the projection of what the revenue reduction would be on sales tax. We talked a little bit about this, about some play in the property tax. Not a whole lot of increase there in terms of revenues. Let me be real clear about that. I'm not talking about tax rates. I'm talking about revenues. And then we went to our expenditure side, and we said in 2021, and so forgive me, I'm going off the top of my head, and this is going to be dangerous now. In this year's budget, we had about a $73 million budget that included capital expenditures because we had the fire trucks and everything. So if you take out the fire trucks, our expenditures were closer to about $71 million or so. Where we're looking at our expenditure sides right now, it's in the 62 to 63 million range. So we've reduced our expenditures for next year's budget by nearly $10 million. And we're going to be able to demonstrate for you as we walk through that, where did we generate those particular savings and how did we do it? What I'm saying is that that's based on a 60% reduction of sales tax. Between now and the time you are finally going to adopt the budget, I believe that sales tax number is going to adjust and adjust up. Maybe not significantly, but it's going to adjust up, which will then allow us to do some of these one-time purchases that we talked about for planning purposes for next year. But we're not going to adjust it up. And that you just heard me say, and looking at the numbers, the number may go from a 60% reduction to a 50% reduction, right? It's not going to be something that's, oh, we're going to be at 80% or something. No, we're not going to do that from a revenue standpoint. Now, if that money comes in from sales tax at that level, then for us and for you as part of the discussion, if it starts coming in at that particular level, I would say to you that you start not using the fund or spending the fund, but you start setting that aside, if you will, to help bridge the next year. So, because if you recall, under SB 2 years out, I think it was under the model, and Jennifer can correct me, 2 years out, we were going to be generating less revenue through property tax because of the way SB 2 works. So anything we do to help cushion that is better for us. Okay? Yes, there are a lot of moving parts. I've got a great staff that's doing a phenomenal job of watching all those pieces and putting up with Mike giving a call and said, hey, I got this idea. Run this number and see what it does. Don't answer the question, Casey.
I'm happy to answer any questions. So whenever we are looking at the IMF, crime control, and CRDC again, just everything that Mike said, that's what we're talking about whenever it comes to the sales tax revenue that we're presenting right now.
And as an example, so we have the sales tax reduction, but let's demonstrate how this works. Look at your transfer in. Because we have less going into the general fund, we are obviously transferring less into this fund for those things that that Casey was talking about. I almost said Tracy. I'll get Vicki, Jennifer. I'll say them all tonight before it's over with. But that just shows you how the system, how it works, right? We didn't hold to the transfer to keep it at that number because we can't, because we're saying in the general fund the expenditures are going down because we have less revenue.
Okay. And so, speaking of expenditures for IMF, what we are looking at next year is big ticket items. We're looking at the construction of Cambria. We're also looking at doing design for Southwestern and Woodhurst. And then everything else that we have budgeted for next year have to do with the ongoing maintenance that we do. The streets, alleys, sidewalks, all those normal repairs that we have to do throughout the city, ADA improvements, traffic signal maintenance, maintenance of the different facility parking lots, curbs, that all comes out of the IMF. Do we have any questions on IMF? Okay. Our next fund is the Rolling Oaks Memorial Cemetery. And what we've done here is anticipate a small increase over the current year adopted for all of the burial rights revenues, service revenues, and that has to do with us anticipating the expansion opening up. There will obviously be more availability for purchases for those wishing to prearrange. This is one of those things that, like the forfeitures, I can't tell you how much we're going to need in revenues. Whenever it comes to the cemetery fund particularly, the revenues are generally offset exactly by the expenditures for providing those services. We do sell the memorial markers along with the burial plots. And just to let y'all know, during your 5th Tuesday, y'all are planning to discuss the fee structure for the cemetery. So after we get feedback from y'all, we may have some changes to these revenue numbers. And then for next year, the expenditures for the cemetery have to do with the 3 FTEs that we have on site there, along with the mowing of the grounds. You'll notice that the maintenance and services amounts went up pretty significantly. A lot of that has to do with, again, that direct offset of revenue. Whenever we have more availability, we have more grounds to maintain, those costs go up, but we are able to collect revenue to offset those. Are there any questions on cemetery? Yes, sir.
So as I understand this, Casey, we've got a deficit of $270,000 here. In addition to that, is the $300,000 that you've put up in revenue, really not knowing exactly what that amount's going to be, right? Based on the fees that we're going to talk about in the 5th Tuesday session, correct?
The transfer in from general fund to cemetery is usually in there, and we only make it if at the end of each fiscal year the cemetery does need it.
Looks like they may. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, and we will flip over to the Crime Prevention District. As the board, y'all have seen this budget. I do want to point out that the only thing that has changed since the board met and discussed this was that same evening we brought forward the budget amendment. So if you look at the fiscal year 20 amended budget for crime control, and I'm on the top of page 23, you'll notice that we amended down about $1.8 million in sales tax revenue that we're expecting a shortfall in current year. Did y'all have any other questions on crime control?
So that salary reimbursement piece.
Yes,
is
ma'am.
School district.
Okay. It's for the school resource officers.
How many officers do we have?
That is for 6 officers at 75%.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Casey, under capital outlays, what are we not doing that we've typically done the last couple of years?
So for next year, the only thing we have planned for the capital outlay is some training room and technology refreshes. The current year does include the balance of the patrol fleet replacement. It was funded from majority of capital fleet replacement fund. There was a deficit, though, of a few $100,000 that we budgeted here.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. We will flip over to CRDC. And I do want to point out, if you'll take a look in your packets between pages 24 and 25, as we discussed, we're looking at a 60% reduction in sales tax. However, because of the debt that we've issued for CRDC specifically, whenever we're looking at the 60% reduction, what we did here is combine the sales tax of both the CRDC and the CRDC debt funds. And then off the top of that, we take the minimum amount we need for debt payments, and whatever's left then is available as the sales tax revenue in the CRDC fund. So if somebody was trying to do math and looking at a 60% reduction, $1.5 million is significantly more than the 60% reduction of current year adopted.
Casey, is the 1 quarter correct? Or is that supposed to be 1/2?
That is 1/2. I will fix that. Okay, thank you.
Really in trouble.
Just presentation-wise, since you had to explain that, is there a different way that we can show this?
I'll put together some options.
Well, I'm just, if somebody is just flipping through and it's not obvious, it's gonna be it's not going to be clear, and it's really important that it be clear, I think. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and then the other major revenue source we're looking at in the CRDC fund for next year has to do with the Art Center revenue. These are projections that we've gotten from Parks Department as far as ticketing fees, parking fees, facility rentals. Everything is rolled up into this almost $1.6 million number. And then moving down into the expenditures, the majority of next year's expenditures have to do exclusively with the opening and operations of the Art Center. The only exception to that is going to be this transfer in. Part of our CRDC is that we transfer in 50% of general funds, parks admin, and ops costs back to general fund, and then we reimburse 100% of the core and tennis divisions to general fund. And so that's what this $526,000 number is. The salary and benefits, supplies, maintenance, services, 4 line items here are solely to do with the Art Center. At this point, we have not identified any specific projects having to do with other parks options. And really, we're doing that from a conservative standpoint. We don't know exactly what the cost of operations will be for the Art Center, and we do want to leave us some breathing room. However, again, just like all of our other special revenues, if we do identify something and we do identify that we have funding available to accomplish that, we'll bring it forward in an amendment. Any other questions on CRDC? All right, and then the very next page is just the debt fund that's right there, and the only expenditures that we have identified or will ever identify for a debt service fund has to do solely with the principal and interest payments that we have to make on the debt. Any questions there? All right, we will go to our last special revenue fund. This is our capital replacement fund, and this was something that we started in fiscal year 15 in order to start partially funding all of the capital fleet that we purchase on an annual basis. The full replacement value of our fleet at this point is around the $15 million mark. So you'll notice that at the end of next year, whenever you see that ending fund balance of around $7 million, we are getting close to 50% funding the replacement of our fleet. How the transfer in revenue works is whenever we purchase any item and add it to our fleet, what we are then doing is using an inflationary factor and the useful life to fund in installments the replacement of that vehicle over its useful life. We don't have anything planned for purchase next year.
Mayor and Council, one of the things that's been discussed, and this is something just to think about and we'll talk about related to the Capital Replacement Fund. In the past, you've asked this question about fully funding the Capital Replacement Fund at one time. And so at roughly about $15 million, we're going to be around $7 million, so that means you'd have to fund the $8 million. One of the things that you can start considering, at least just contemplate, again, you're not making a decision, but you can contemplate if you were to do that this year, meaning 2021, if you were to do that in the out years going forward, not, Casey, if I remember right, not all 1.7 is coming out of the general fund. Is that correct?
It is split over general fund, water, sewer, and crime control.
Right. By chance, do you know about how much is coming out of the general fund this year? I know. I didn't prepare you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My point is, well, she's looking at the number. My point is, if you were to take the general fund portion, pre-fund the capital replacement fund, those dollars then become available for maintenance and operations for other things. So from a strategy standpoint, you may want to consider that as you're contemplating the years going out, if that makes some sense to what I'm saying. I'm sorry, Casey, I didn't see. This is where I get, dang it, Mike, you didn't ask me this earlier today.
It's okay. That's why I bring this with me everywhere.
Okay.
All right. So for fiscal year 21, we are looking at $975,000 transfer in from general fund.
Okay. Out of the 1.7, so about half.
Mm-hmm.
So would that danger? Would that mean about $4 to $5 million would be general fund then, if it was just funded going forward, not the full amount, because you're hitting the other funds. Jennifer, are you going to weigh in?
4.7 million is what we will
go.
have funded.
Okay.
Going through 21 from general fund.
All right. So that would be. So if you think about that, that's nearly $1 million a year that's being funded that could be utilized for M&O. Now, remember when you made this was made this decision back a few years ago. It was and is still the right thing to do. Now you have a new equation, though, that may say maybe the approach may be a little bit different, and maybe you bite the bullet in 1 year to finish off the 4.7. So then that frees up roughly $900,000 to $1 million a year for maintenance and operations. right? Because that's what's happening right now. That $1 million is being basically set aside for capital replacement. So it has a specific purpose. We use it for that purpose, and it allows us to cash the purchases of the vehicles or the equipment. So it's something for you to think about, because remember, we'll be talking to our FA this summer. And their point to us all along has been, while we understand what the implication of the rule could be, when you have your plan and you stick to your plan, that they like that. Whatever that plan is, that you hold to that particular plan. And if this were part of the plan, not only continuing the capital replacement fund the way we're doing it, or we're going to pre-fund the capital replacement fund, which is now going to free up another $1 million from an operations side, that's still a good plan, right? It's just it's a philosophical question that ultimately we can make a recommendation on, but ultimately it's going to be the council's decision. Okay.
Any questions, thoughts? Okay.
Those are all of the special revenue funds for this evening.
Miss Jennifer, did you want to talk a little bit? Give us some your overall insight? Not really. You are on mute, by the way.
I'm on mute. I was unmuted and then I muted myself. On the special revenue funds, is that what you're wanting my insight on?
Jennifer, we talked about the budget calendar a little
Yes.
bit, and then we talked about the budget process that's a little bit different, right? And we talked that you were going to cover that. I think there was one or two.
Oh, Casey
things.
was going to do the calendar too.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, are you just sitting back and just kind of watching Casey and Kim tonight?
Yes, I am.
All right. Okay. OTG. All right. Jay, thanks.
All right. Well, if y'all are ready to move on to the non-number part of the evening, one thing that has happened with the new schedule that we have to adhere to thanks to SB2 is that in order to hold our public hearing and adopt the budget in a timely fashion, which for us this year is slated for August 11th, we are required by statute to publish and file a proposed budget 31 days or more prior to that, which would give us a deadline of July 10th to file a proposed budget. Charter for us says that we do that every year by August 5th, and historically we have adopted a budget at the first council meeting in September. That also allowed us to get certified values from the appraisal district at the end of July, which we will get certified estimates this year at the end of July, thanks to the delays happening because of COVID. So what I am proposing is a very much reduced proposed budget that we would file on July 10th. It would be no more than 20 pages. What we have provided in the past, usually to you in a very large binder, 8 sections, and really it was a draft version of the budget that we then publish. That is not a requirement in that format according to statute. According to statute, we only have to include the proposed cover page and very specific financial schedules. What I would propose doing in order to meet all of our statutory obligations is publish the proposed cover page with the required financial schedules and a narrative memo that basically explains, here's what we're working at now. These are proposed numbers based on the information we have. We would present that to you during your budget workshop the night before, which is that Thursday, July 9th. And then whenever we got our certified estimates from the appraisal district on July 27th, We would then crank out the proposed budget that y'all are used to seeing before our charter deadline of August 5th. That would still be 1 week before we do the much earlier proposed hearing and budget adoption.
And to be really clear, because this is where it gets a little kind of nerve-wracking, the budget that you're seeing on July 9th, remember I just talked about we're going to be getting additional information. Casey just mentioned we don't even get certified roll this year, we get estimated roll this year. That the numbers that we put in there, you are not voting on those numbers. You are not holding public hearings on those numbers. My point is for those listening and for the community, this is all just because of the way SB2 is structured. The reality is that we won't have enough information to be able to say with you concretely, this is what the numbers need to be. But by statute, we have to publish something 31 days before you adopt it. They adopt the budget and the tax rate.
So the fact that one may not look anything like the other one, according to statute, is irrelevant.
That is correct. You have the legal authority to make changes up until the minute before you all vote.
Okay, this is the reason that we are a little dismayed with the time schedule this year. Okay. And are we documenting this to the nth degree, which you have done pretty well in this memo, so that we can pass on this wealth of information for our legislators in the spring?
I am happy to provide any and all information to support this.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody have a question about that, Nancy?
I do. A quick question, Casey. So you're saying the appraisals, the estimate, historically, how are the estimates been towards what the actual appraisals have been? I know we're in different times, but I just want to get some kind of an idea in the past.
So historically, we've had from the preliminary numbers that we get from the appraisal district in May through what is actually certified at the end of July, which is normally the 25th, which falls on a Saturday this year, so now we have to wait 2 more days. I can pull up last year's, where we usually present to y'all during the second budget workshop the document that shows the historical fall off. Sorry, just one moment.
We didn't ask that question ahead of time. Sorry.
And I see Jennifer moving around. She might have it.
There's the book. She pulled out the book.
All right. Historically, over the last 29 years, we've lost about 5.53% from the time, that's the average loss from the time of preliminary to certification. Now, our highest loss was 11.64, and then our lowest percentage of decline was 2.19. So we usually look at what the average has been. So we're looking at possibly a 6% loss from the time the preliminary to what we get in July.
So when you look at your numbers on this abbreviated budget, are you going to take that 6% out?
Yes. Okay. We start with a number that right now we're looking at about 4.95% increase in values from the current year. So we don't take the whole percentage of what they say.
Right. And also remember, too, you have, that's, what did I say? You have increased value or new value. Help me, Jennifer, my mind just went blank.
Construction?
Well, new construction, BPP, I mean, you've got.
And reappraisals.
And reappraise. So you have things on top of, the way SB2 works, just as a reminder, is as of January 1 of whatever was on the books of 2019, January 1, 2019, when you go forward to January 1 of 2020, the new revenue can only go up to the 3.499 on those values. The 3.499, you get the full benefit of any new value, whether it's new houses, new businesses, new BPP that comes on, or anything along those lines. So when they start talking about, this goes back to the way the messaging is, right? When they start talking about values going up in a particular community, there are more pieces to that as well that we have to watch out for in the calculations.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I can find the new value number from Dallas County, the preliminary estimate. I'll keep looking, and then if I can find it, I'll give it to you.
Okay, Mark?
I think I would contend that the rates are going to shift even more than we would see in an average year, just because people are sheltering at home. They're feeling the economic pinch. They have more time to devote to protesting their valuations, and the online process has gotten so much easier. I think I would err more towards the 8% range.
We are hearing a lot about protesting just in normal conversation. So I don't remember hearing it as much before, but it appears that people are very aware of the opportunities. So Mark might be right. So life will be interesting. Just adds one more moving part. Thank you very much.
Okay, for Dallas County, it showed that there was $341 million in value for new construction, of about a $7 billion increase in total. Now, these are, the preliminary numbers.
Jennifer, restate, it wasn't a $7 billion increase in total.
$7 billion increase in total taxable value from last year's number to this year's number was $7 billion.
No.
7 million, I'm sorry.
I was about ready to say, we would be up around 15 billion if we increased 7 billion.
See, I told you I'm not very good with those zeros.
That's okay. It's just sad that you're relying on my memory to keep it in check.
So of the 700 million, 341 of it was new construction.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions about that? Miss Casey.
All right. And then if y'all want to flip to the last page in your packet, it's page 29. We put together just a listing of all these dates that we're talking about, kind of walking you through what we still have coming up. So tonight is our first full budget workshop. You will have on the 30th of this month Tuesday meeting where you'll be discussing some of the fees that we hinted at earlier today. We will meet back on July 9th for our next budget workshop where we will discuss general fund and debt service and give you any updates that we have. That next day, after you've seen what we're doing for the condensed proposed that we have to file, we will file that with City Secretary and post it online for review. We will receive the certified estimated values on the last Monday of July, which is the 27th. That evening will also be our final scheduled budget workshop. From there, we will be putting together the larger full-length version of the proposed budget and pushing that out to the public for the review so that we can, by the 11th, have a good idea of how many folks have seen it and know that they've had enough time to thoroughly review it before we do our single public hearing this year and the budget adoption that same night.
So there isn't going to be anything else on the agenda that night, right? It's gonna be a tight schedule.
And Mayor, if you recall, we were one of the first ones that brought this issue up to our legislatures. If you recall their response, nothing changed. But I think after we go through this fall, going through this process, my hope is, much like to your point, we can demonstrate how this doesn't work.
Well, I remember being told, well, we told you could present the budget and have your public hearing and vote on it the same night. And it was like, that doesn't give anybody any time to do anything.
That's a real question. How does that really benefit the public? Let alone from a decision-making process, but how does that really work from a public participation standpoint?
Well, it doesn't really help from a council standpoint either. If we're going to be going through the budget and adopting the rate and everything the same night, yeah. Okay. Because that really only gives, 6 days? And how thick is the budget? How many just average pages is it?
275.
275. Well, you can handle it, yes. Okay. That's enough whining on my part. Is anybody going to bring the cheese next time? Any other questions about the overall budget? Timeline? And is everybody okay with and not have any questions about the
proposed budget light?
Proposed light. Oh, very good, light. The condensed, maybe not so accurate budget.
The proposed draft budget.
Proposed draft budget. Because there were still moving parts that we don't know. Okay. Added on top of that, COVID. And okay. So, anything else? We have general discussion on the budget, on the agenda. Any other general discussion items that anybody would like to bring in? Okay. Then there's no further business before us. The time is 8:54. We are adjourned. See you tomorrow night.